afternoon, and welcome back to another episode of the Pitcher Perfect podcast. I am one of your hosts, Kat Osterman, here with my co-host, Holly Pierce. Both of us pitching directors in the travel ball world, love talking all things pitching. So welcome to today's conversation about effective velocity and how we both use effective velocity in order to call pitches and help our pitchers succeed. Holly, I'll start with I didn't think about effective velocity when I played, and I don't know if other people did at that point in time or not. Again, there's so much that has grown in our sport since I finished college, but two, even since I finished playing professionally. But when I got into coaching, someone, and I can't remember who recommended it, but someone recommended a book called Downright Filthy Pitching, I think that's what it was called. And it's by Perry Husband, and it's essentially a 3-book series, and it's all about effective velocity. And I read it while I was over in Japan with the national team, I believe. Like, I had it on my Kindle reading it, and then I got hard copies to read the other two. It just changed my perspective on pitch calling, especially like at Texas State. I had Randy Rupp, who came in, rise, curve, change, screw. Rise ball was not very good. It was always out of the zone, so we took that away right away. Focused on curve, screw. Screw got hit quite a bit, so now we're a curveball changeup pitcher. She had a nasty changeup. And so then it was like, okay, how can I use those two pitches plus something else to help set her up for success? And so I've used it a lot, especially when I don't have pitchers with 2 or 3 very good tools, like elite tools, because I think it makes you as a pitching coach think about, even if I don't have a rise ball, and we've talked about this a number of times of throwing high fastballs, but how throwing a high fastball in can now set up your other pitches that are your bread and butter, even if people are sitting on them. Right? And so I think effective velocity allowed me to understand what zones speed hitters up. Where does it look the slowest to a hitter? Where are you right on time? And one of those is my least favorite spot, high and out. So anyone who's going to tell me a rise ball out's a great pitch, nope, it's right on time for a hitter. Don't speed them up or slow them down out there. It was really eye-opening, and I think I can look at how I threw in the past and equate it to there were certain times where I got people out because I did this, or this, and it matches up.
Yeah.
Now, I think the cool thing is I get to play with hitters based on knowing that, you know what, if we miss a screwball too far inside, that pitch looked a little bit faster than it really was.
Yeah.
And the flip side of that is when I'm training pitchers, I get to tell them, guys, the rise ball, when it's tight, 1, you're more likely to get a swing and miss. But 2, that pitch looks a lot faster. Like if we throw 63, that pitch looks a lot faster than 63 tight than it does over the middle of the plate. Like it may still be the same height, but even a couple inches out from their eyes is a different speed than what's tight. And I think sometimes when I talk to them about that, the wheels turn and they're like, oh, that's why it's so important to hit that spot. Not just because middle of the plate's easier to hit, but the way it looks to a hitter is so different. And so I've enjoyed being able to tap into that, especially, and again, if you don't have a pitcher with a changeup, how can we make it look slower and faster kind of thing. But you talk a little bit about how you dove into effective velocity and use it with your girls.
The importance of disrupting timing. So really understanding, for those of you that don't know what effective velocity is, it's basically the way that the speed of a pitch, the way that it's perceived, depending on the location. So an up and in pitch at 58 miles an hour, timing wise to a hitter may look closer to 62, right? Something especially low and out is going to look a little bit slower than maybe what it actually is. So with contact points and hitters, where the pitch is, they have to hit an inside pitch, especially an upside up and inside pitch out in front. They got to get their barrel out, which gives them less time also. Something low and out, you got to wait a little longer to get that ball to travel. So you're playing around with the contact points of the hitters and their perception on the actual speed versus what they're seeing, depending on that location. And it really all does tie back into timing and disrupting a hitter's timing. So, the way that we really play around with it is the ability, like you said, to spot an up and in. And even for a pitcher, now this is so important, especially for our pitchers that maybe don't throw real hard and feel like I don't throw hard enough to pitch inside. You don't have to throw hard to pitch inside, especially when you understand effective velocity and spotting a ball up and in that's going to look to the eye, to the batter's eye, faster than it actually is, speed their barrel up, get them to be pulling their barrel through, and maybe you'll just get a foul ball. You know, if you don't throw real hard and you throw them something up and in and you get them to pull the ball foul, now they've pulled their hands across their body. And now you go to something low and out where they're going to have to let the ball travel a little more. Add in the fact that a low and out pitch also looks slower than it actually is, and you've completely messed with their timing. So that really is for me, for us, what Tony does, what we do with our team, with our range pitchers, is understanding the importance of disrupting timing. How do we make that happen? And effective velocity is a very key piece in that. It's not just what the speed is on the radar gun, it's what the hitter's seeing. It's her perception of what that speed is. So where she's making decisions to swing, at what point she's making that decision because of what that speed looks like to her. And then, changing speeds and contact points for the hitter is going to obviously disrupt the outcome of the at-bat.
Yeah, I think you tell me like the biggest thought process when I talk to my pitchers. And again, I use this when I try to dissuade people from throwing rise balls outside, because again, like the speed portion of it, like, down the middle is 63. It doesn't change, right? Low and in, it's like that diagonal going out is where the pitches all look the speed they are, right? But in that 63 up and out, not only it doesn't make them feel faster, but an oops barrel can get hit hard. So if we're throwing that, what are we setting up? Because the opposite of that is down and in, and those look the same speed. So unless you're going there and down and out, which a lot of people don't utilize that way to get hitters out, like that would be the only complement speed-wise, right? And so I like using it because I think a lot of times too, people think like they're staying all in just because like the first two pitches of the at-bat are in. And I'm like, well, if I have a righty and she throws a screw or a backdoor curve for a strike somewhere mid-thigh down, which is where we should be throwing it, then when we go rise in, that's not the same speed, even though on the radar gun it is. And so now I've just set you up to where I can go back down and in, or I could go out, or I could go change up. I can do a lot of things. And I don't know how many hitters at this level that you and I work at, but even at the next level necessarily think about effective velocity. Like think of, oh, she sped me up, so they're going to probably do this. So I think that's still in a pitcher's benefit. But as you said, and I touched on a little bit, is you don't have to have all 5 pitches to use effective velocity to make you successful.
Yeah.
Like you literally can have a fastball and a changeup and use effective velocity to make yourself more effective. Now, what it does demand, and this is the part that's hard when you and I are working, is it does demand that you have control.
Yes.
So effective velocity doesn't work if we don't have control, which also is what I use when I am trying to talk to my pitchers about the importance of being able to hit a spot, and at least an area about this big, is if I'm trying to set up a down and out, you can't throw the rise ball or the high fastball down the middle of the plate because that doesn't help us set it out. If I'm trying to set up your rise ball and I want to go in and you miss and it misses middle, you didn't help me. Or worse, if I'm trying to set up high and in and I try to go out and you miss in, you just threw off how I'm trying to set up a pitch. Mm-hmm. And so I think I like being able to use effective velocity too to explain to my kids how missing their spots then throws off our entire game.
Yes.
Because it doesn't work if you can't hit your spot. And by hitting your spot, I mean like there is a different speed for hitting the corner and then hitting what they call the pressure zone, which is basically the river all the way around. So if you go corner and then I go pressure zone, that pressure zone looks a little bit faster. And it's the same thing with the rise ball. Like corner is faster, but pressure zone is even faster. So like if you can go up and in, but I can then go up and in, make that like you're going to really open up things. And it's the same thing down and out, which you and I have talked about on other episodes about, curveballs and being able to stair step them out. Well, they aren't just effective because they tail away, but they're also effective because the farther out you go, it looks a little bit slower. And now a hitter has to adjust to that and then adjust if you can go high and in and bust them up with speed. So I think the big thing is like, you don't have to have multiple pitches, but you do have to have command. Command is the one thing you have to have for effective velocity to work.
Yes. Effective velocity really is playing chess with the batter. It is Tony says all the time, there are levels to this game. It's kind of the next level in pitching. Understanding that is playing that chess match with the batter. And just like a chess match, one move sets up the other, sets up the other. But if you drop the ball on one move, you've now kind of put yourself in a tough spot to be able to make those subsequent moves afterwards. And it's the same thing with lack of command. So if one pitch is going to set up the other, going to set up the other, and we have a game plan for a hitter here, now if you don't have command and you're not able to execute this spot, because ultimately what we're trying to do is get to the next spot, by changing the perception and speed here, changing the timing here, changing the look, the posture, all those things of the batter, so that we can go now to our put 'em out pitch on the one afterwards, but we're not able to hit that one before it, the game plan doesn't work. So, and that goes to not just effective velocity, but pitch calling in general, that a great pitch call, you can be the best pitch caller in the world. If you're a pitcher on a team and you have a great pitch caller and somebody that's working with you that really understands the game, that's wonderful. But their job is completely obsolete if the ball doesn't go where they're asking you to put the ball. So, setting batters up, setting pitchers up, setting hitters up, and disrupting timing, everything falls back to command. You have to be able to put the ball where you want to put it. Now, that being said, if you do miss a pitch, okay, where did that ball go, and how can we use that to our benefit? Okay, now we go to plan B.
Let's mark.
Right?
Yeah, let's mark real quick. Hold on just a second. Just ask her if she wants some blueberries or there's some goldfish in the pantry. You tried. Hold on just a second. My child wants beans. Okay, sorry.
No, you're good.
All right, we'll mark this. Okay, so I marked when we left and when we right around now, so you can edit that piece out.
Okay, so now if you do miss a pitch and have to go to plan B, right? Because we're always ready to pivot if we have to. Say you were trying to throw something in at the knees and get like a ground ball to third base, and you missed up on the hands, and it almost hit the batter, and it surprised her. It wasn't a strike. It was a mistake. You didn't mean to put the ball there. Okay. Well, what did that set up now? What's plan B? That may have just set up a good off speed, or it just set up something low and away. So also understanding effective velocity too is that even if you do miss a spot, if it's a good spot, even if it's not the intended spot, that may have just now set something else up. So, I think that that's good too, that when you understand effective velocity, you don't get super hung up on the fact that, oh my gosh, I just missed my spot. But it's like, okay, well, that wasn't a bad spot. It wasn't my intended spot. But what did this now set up for the next one? Now what can I do after this? And then be able to turn the page faster and try and get out on the next pitch.
Right. And I think that too coincides with why it is so important for catchers to be honest with us on when pitches miss. And for a pitcher not to get their feelings hurt when a catcher's like, oh, that missed down the middle. Okay, well, because that tells us what it looked like to the hitter. And in this case, for you and I, like, it tells us what speed it looked like to the hitter, right? And so so many times be like, oh, well, I don't want the catcher's, head coach, I don't want the catcher saying it was down the middle. Okay, well, find a different sign if you don't want down the middle. But the catcher needs to be able to tell you where it missed. Because there's sometimes they'll say, oh, that went that way. And I'm like, and I'll tell them, I'll be like, corner or off? And they'll be like, oh, corner. Okay, so I know what it looked like. Or if they miss the inside, they'll tell me, like, over the plate this much. Okay, cool. Now I'm having a conversation without having a conversation, but I also can now set up based on the miss. Now, there are some misses, obviously, like down the middle, way off the plate, where a hitter doesn't have to watch it. That doesn't help us at all, and we've already talked about that before in non-competitive pitches. But if it's competitive and we know exactly where it went, based on either a pitcher telling us or a catcher, because I've had pitchers too be like, oh, that one, sorry, the wrong side of the plate. Or they look at me and they're like, oh, wait. And I'm like, okay, got it. I've also had times that they told me it went the wrong side of the plate and I thought they were telling me they can't throw to that side of the plate. And I was like, what do you want me to do? But, I've had pitchers that tell me, oops, like that went that way or that was that there kind of thing. And it's not giving away anything, but it's giving me feedback. So now when I go to set up the next pitch, I'm not going based on the spot I thought we hit. Because there are times you would think from the dugout, but depending on where we are, there are times where you can't tell that a curveball might have been down the middle or a backdoor actually went probably 2/3 across the plate, because depending if your catcher moves a lot or not, you don't always see it. Mm-hmm. And so I think, to your point, a miss can be worked with if the miss is communicated to us who are calling pitches.
Yes.
And I think that's important for pitchers to know, one, because as you said, you don't have to get overworked up about missing a spot if it was competitive. Yeah. So when a miss is communicated to us, then yes, it allows us to use that miss to set up. And a pitcher can know that even though it wasn't the ideal spot, it still worked, right? And so I think that is the key though, but how coaches have to work with both catchers and pitchers on getting that communicated. Like obviously we can see if it's up. If it's up in middle, like find a way to tell us kind of thing. If it's outside, or I like too when we miss outside, I like my catchers to tell me like, did we float the river? Did we miss by a lot? Because if we're close, then I'm going to take it. But miss by a lot, that may have been, depending on how far, non-competitive, even though I thought it was a good height.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's huge. But I think effective velocity is something a lot more, especially younger coaches, younger pitching coaches, because even if you know how your pitches worked, that's not going to work for everybody. I mean, if it did, I would be calling drop balls 85% of the time for every pitcher I have, right? But their drop is not my drop. Some of them have way better changeups. All of them have way better changeups than I ever had. So I can now pitch backwards with effective velocity too, because I can go change up inside, change up outside, change up lower. Oh, let's bust you in with something hard. Because I have had a pitcher that I can throw changeups 3-4 times in a row and it can work. But when she can throw it to both sides, that changes the effective velocity game with an off-speed pitch too. So I think if I'm encouraging new coaches, it's go learn about effective velocity and how to call pitches based on that, because it opens your eyes to not having to have all the stuff. If you can command a fastball, you can do a lot of things if you only have one or two other things. And young, like let's say, I want to say 12U, but I get 12U now that are trying to throw 5 pitches too. But like when I was 12U, fastball changeup, you can use fastball changeup with effective velocity. I did it. I threw a high fastball for so long and it was effective because, and now I look back on it, because of effective velocity and how I hit my spots with other things. But so if a pitcher is just starting in games, coaches, you can use effective velocity. But again, it does warrant command. And obviously the younger we are, our command is a little less. So make sure that when they miss, you know where it misses, so you're not then setting the hitter up to be on time because you're not paying attention to when she misses.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that at the higher levels, a good rise ball changeup pitcher is very hard to beat, especially if they have command of that. The ability to put the ball up in the zone, and again, like I said earlier, that a rise ball or something up and in, a batter's got to get their barrel out and hit the ball out in front to be on time. And then you pair that with something slow, especially something slow and low or outside, and you've really widened that speed gap, not just perception wise, but also timing wise and what they need to do with their barrel to be on time. Hitting is all about getting a good pitch and being on time. You can have the prettiest swing in the world, but if you're not on time, you're really not going to produce. And the same thing is if you're not swinging at good pitches, you're really not going to produce. So between those two things, if there's one thing we absolutely can control as pitchers is the timing of a batter. And disrupting that timing, you don't have to throw 65 miles per hour to be able to disrupt timing. You don't have to throw 65 miles per hour to throw inside. And that's a big thing too. I'll go back to with effective velocity is you can make your inside pitch look so much faster by throwing other stuff, or how far inside you get it, how far up on the hands you get it. You can be throwing 56, 58 miles an hour and it's going to look like 60, 61, 62 based on the location and the timing of the batter and their ability to react. And especially if you're throwing other stuff that's low and out and change-ups. So this really is, I think, something that can make average pitchers a whole lot better and give them the ability to beat hitters that are maybe a little more elite than they are. And I don't mean that as a knock to pitchers. I hope that inspires pitchers to know that if you are, kind of on the more average side and you're not throwing like elite spin, elite speed, all these things, but you understand how to utilize what you have to disrupt timing, you can beat elite hitters. You just have to be able to have a grasp of it and then obviously have command and be able to execute it.
Yeah. Well, and I think you hit it in a second ago. You don't have to throw hard to throw inside. And I think that's something I wish I would have known younger. So again, left-handed curveball, so it goes into righties, right? But I threw 60 to 63. I didn't buzz anything in there until pro ball when I got a little bit stronger. And so in that case, like I was hesitant to throw the curveball inside to right-handed hitters because I thought it was too slow and they were going to just, be able to mash on it. And later, pretty much after college, and I started throwing, like, there were hitters that are like, why don't you throw the curveball into us? Like, you throw it away to righties, you control it on that side of the plate, or I mean, away to lefties, you control it out there. I'm like, oh, it's too slow. And they were like, that doesn't matter. Like, the way it spins, the way it breaks, the way you can command it, like, it's useful. And so then I started to, especially when I knew hitters would look for a dropout. Okay, let me get them in knowing they're probably leaning a little bit. And then that opens up that for me, or at least later on when I face them again, they have to respect both sides of the plate now. And so I think that was something I really, really wish I knew earlier, was the point of throwing inside is not based on how hard you throw. Like, you can throw inside and use that to your advantage. And so I think that is a really good message for pitchers, especially those that aren't the flamethrowers. Is like, you can still throw inside and you can still technically jam a hitter not throwing 65 plus.
Yeah, and that, you may not be able to throw it right on the corner and jam them like somebody that's throwing 68 miles an hour, but bring it in tighter. That's how you're going to be able, you may have to just shift the location a little bit, get it a little bit tighter. The less hard you throw, probably the tighter you're going to have to get it on the batter to be able to jam them, but you can still do it. The zone isn't just the plate right there. You throw to the batter, not to where the plate is. And the other thing too is get a long foul ball. Get them to pull something long foul. If they're way ahead of it and they pull a long foul home run, great. Guess what? You just set something else up. You just set up an outside pitch. You just set up a changeup. You just set up a drop outside or an off speed or a middle speed. So don't fear throwing inside. You just have to understand where to locate it. And the other thing I'm going to say, from a batter's perspective, as a hitter, I always felt like the pitchers that had the tightest spin and the latest break, the ball always appeared to be coming in faster. And I don't know if that's just me as a batter, like having to make a little bit later decisions because the ball was breaking so late and I was trying to really see it in. But I do think that, on top of location, if you've got tight spin and pretty late good break, that ball appears to come in a little bit faster than it actually does because it's breaking so late and it's doing things to the batter's eyes that are disrupting timing in that way as well.
So I agree. Like, I think that's part of, like, I say I threw, people don't believe me when I say I don't throw hard. They're like, whatever. And I'm like, but I think it's because it was spinning so tight. Because I think when you have tight spin, it goes on a straight line, right? I mean, yes, it'll break up and down, but it goes. And when you don't have tight spin, you kind of see the wobble or the lot, like you see a lob to it kind of thing. I think the tighter it is, obviously, it comes in firmer in the fact that it's straight and it's not tailing due to gravity and stuff. So I do think you have a point there. But again, this whole point in talking about effective velocity is not that you have to have high velocity. I think it's about learning what pitches look like to hitters. And if you're a pitcher, I would say go look up on it too. So like what your pitches can look like based on different zones and different spots. And then at the same time, I'm going to go back to when you practice in your bullpen and you get to that variable element, everything's already warm, we're no longer throwing like consecutive of the same pitch, is being able to say, okay, I'm going to go, rise ball in tight, or I'm just going to go rise ball in a corner. And I'm going to go curve, out on the corner, I'm going to go curve river. But being able to hit both of those on command and not accidental.
Yeah.
That allows you to do a lot of things and play with hitters when you can intentionally stretch and not accidentally stretch. Mm-hmm. So I think that's my big takeaway, and, not a lot more to dive into, so this can be a little bit of a shorter episode for our listeners, but it is something that as pitchers and pitching coaches, I encourage everybody to kind of get familiar with. So you have it in the back of your mind, because even if somebody has a dominant pitch and you don't have to use it, what happens the day that dominant pitch isn't working right? What happens the day, I've had pitchers that come and are like, this ain't working. I'm like, all right, cool, we'll try to use this and this. And, if it's a changeup that's not working, okay, how are you going to try to change speeds, right? And this is a way you can do that. So I encourage coaches, pitching coaches, pitchers to go research it, read up on it, understand how it can be your friend, because it's definitely an incredible line of thinking, especially as you get older. And if you're not adding a pitch, or if you're not, trying to figure out how, without a changeup to be a little bit better. It's a great way.
Can you remind us again, what was the name of that book? so everybody can go out and buy it
Yeah,
today.
so yeah, go buy it today. It is Perry Husband, and it is called Downright Filthy Pitching. And he actually has 3 different books in the series, but it's Downright Filthy Pitching is the first one, and then there's a couple others that they just really dive into this, and they are written in the baseball perspective because, again, like most things, we get this from baseball. So when he talks about specific pitches, it's more baseball oriented, but you definitely can learn. Like, I had the books and they were highlighted and drawn in, and I handed them off to somebody else to read and use. But there's 3 books in the series. You don't have to read all 3 either. This one goes pretty deep into it that you understand it. So Downright Filthy Pitching is what I would recommend. Go grab. Look, it's not exciting. It's not going to be a read you're going to sit and like not be able to put down for our reading nerds out there.
Change the
Holly and I are,
trajectory of your game for
yes.
certain, for sure.
But reading, pieces of it a day helps and you can get through it. So, yeah, I would encourage everyone, check it out, learn on it, read up on it, help your pitchers out, help yourself out.
And as always, thank you to Tie It Yourself Hair Ties, DIYproducts.com for partnering with us. Use code PicturePerfectPodcast for 10% off. These are some of my daughters that she's been using. See how you clip it, you make it long, there we go. If you've got thick hair especially, this one's a little bit smaller, but best stuff on the market, and you'll be part of the cool crowd because that's what everybody's wearing right now.
Yep, and our code PicturePerfectPodcast gets you a discount, but you can put them in your braids, put them different colored bubbles. I'm gonna have to get some and make bubble braid. I had to make them match our bomber uniforms. We got some new ones that are pretty cool. So gotta get on there.
If you wear your Picture Perfect podcast hat this weekend, I'm gonna hold you to that. If you wear it, you got to post. I want to see.
Okay.
I want to see proof. I want to see a picture.
Sounds good. I'll do that for you.
All right.
Thank you guys for listening to another episode and listening to Holly and I talk anything and everything pitching. We will be back with you next week with another episode. As always, like, subscribe, share, comment, drop questions, anything you have. We'd love to do another Q&A episode and answer questions that you guys actually have. So drop those for us, and we will get back to you next week. But thank you for listening, and have a great weekend or great week, and we will talk to you guys soon.
Bye.